What could have been? The legacy of love. Above the treetops, the night was a canvas of twinkling stars, each a silent witness to the drama unfolding below. The forest floor was a dance floor of shadows, the moon's glow a strobe light flickering through the leaves. Two figures moved with an urgency that didn't match the serenity above, their blades glinting in the intermittent light. Apollo, the agile one, was a blur of motion, her sword flashing like a silver snake, while Nicole, the steadfast, followed with a grace that belied her burgeoning strength. The air had tension, each breath a silent promise of what was to come. Why did it have to end like this? Nicole whispered, her eyes never leaving Apollo's. Her voice trembled, a stark contrast to the firm grip she had on her sword. Because it's the only way, Apollo replied, her own voice calm as a lake at dawn. We always knew this was our fate. The two young women had been inseparable since childhood, their bond unshakable even as the whispers grew louder. They were more than friends. They were lovers in a world where love like theirs was forbidden. Nicole took a step forward, her blade wavering slightly. But we had a plan. A way out of this. A plan that could never work, Apollo said, a hint of sadness in her voice. We're not meant to escape this fate, Nicole. We're meant to face it. Summary 1. Apollo and Nicole, two lovers bound by fate, engage in a desperate sword fight in a moonlit forest, their movements a tragic dance of love and duty. Despite their childhood dreams of escape, Apollo acknowledges that their fate is inescapable. Their eyes met, the blue of Apollo's a stark contrast to Nicole's green. In that moment, Nicole saw the resignation in Apollo's gaze and her heart shattered. All the dreams they had shared, all the whispers of a life beyond the confines of their kingdom, all of it felt like a distant memory now. With a roar that echoed through the night, Nicole lunged at Apollo, their swords clashing with a sound that sent shivers down the spines of nearby animals. The battle was fierce, each strike a silent shout of anger and pain. The forest grew quiet as the two continued their deadly dance, each movement a silent conversation of their past, their love, and their inevitable end. The only sounds were the metallic ring of swords and the ragged breaths that punctuated their grief. Suddenly, Apollo's blade slipped, leaving a thin line of red across Nicole's arm. Nicole's eyes widened, the reality of their situation crashing down on her. "This isn't a game, Apollo!" she screamed, desperation seeping into her voice. "We can't just keep fighting like this." Apollo's smile was bittersweet as she replied, "It never was a game, my love." Their swords locked. Their eyes searched each other's for a spark of understanding. But there was none to be found. They were on opposite sides of a chasm that had formed over time, a chasm that could never be bridged. Summary 1. The intensity of their battle escalates as Apollo and Nicole, once inseparable, confront the harsh reality of their love in a forbidden world. Despite their shared past, the chasm between them seems insurmountable. Their hearts hammered against their chests as they stared into each other's eyes. This was the moment they had feared since the day they realized the truth about themselves. Their fate had been written in the stars, a tragic tale of two souls bound by love and destined for heartbreak. The air was thick with the scent of blood, the taste of tears, and the promise of a future that would never be. "This isn't what I wanted," Nicole choked out, her voice strained from the effort of holding back the sobs that threatened to spill forth. "This isn't what I wanted for us." "You know what I am," Apollo replied, her voice filled with a steely resolve that sent a shiver down Nicole's spine. "I have to protect our people even if it means this." Nicole's hand trembled as she gripped her sword, the weight of their friendship, their love, their shared secrets heavy upon her. "And I have to protect you," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "even if it means this." With a cry that seemed to rip the very fabric of the night, Nicole swung her sword in a wide arc, aiming not for Apollo's heart but for her own. The blade sliced through the air, a silent scream of pain and despair that hung in the stillness of the forest. Apollo reacted on instinct, her sword flashing up to block the blow that was meant for Nicole. The impact sent them both reeling backward, their bodies colliding with the hard ground. Summary: 1. Overwhelmed by their tragic fate, Nicole and Apollo faced the ultimate decision, their love and duty at odds. As Nicole tries to end her own life to prevent further pain, Apollo instinctively protects her, demonstrating their deep, unshakable bond. For a moment there was silence. The forest held its breath, waiting for the inevitable finale of this tragic ballet. But it didn't come. Instead, Nicole's eyes searched Apollo's face, the moonlight painting it with shades of silver and blue. "Why did you do that?" she demanded, the anguish clear in her voice. Apollo's smile was sad as she brushed a lock of hair from Nicole's sweat-soaked forehead. "Because I love you, and I could never let you go so easily." Their swords lay forgotten beside them as they embraced, their bodies entwined in a silent promise to fight the fate that sought to tear them apart. But fate was a cruel master, and it had other plans. Suddenly, the serenity of the night was shattered by the sound of hooves pounding towards them. The guards had found them. The lovers knew their time was up. With a final kiss, a whispered goodbye, they pulled apart and took up their swords once more. This was the end of what could have been. But it was also the beginning of a legend that would live on in whispers and lullabies for generations to come. Their blades met in the moonlight, a dance of love and despair that would be their final stand against the world that never understood them. As the guards closed in, their hearts beat in unison, their love a beacon that shone brighter than any star above. And as they fought side by side, the very earth seemed to shake with the power of their bond. The trees whispered their names, the wind carried their cries, and the animals of the forest wept for what was to come. Their swords sang a deadly melody, a duet that spoke of a love that could not be silenced, not even by the cold hand of fate. The battle was fierce, the outcome never in doubt. But as the last guard fell, and the moon cast its final rays upon their blood-soaked forms, it was not the end of their story, but the beginning of a legend that would echo through the annals of time. For in the quiet moments when the world had forgotten their names, their love would live on, a beacon in the darkness for all who dared to love against the tide. The guards had surrounded them, a ring of steel and malice that closed in like a noose. But Apollo and Nicole stood firm, their eyes never leaving each other, their swords a silent declaration of their love. They had been trained since childhood for this, their bond a secret weapon that made them unbeatable. As the guards advanced, Apollo whispered, "Remember the pact we made, Nicole. Our love will not be forgotten." Nicole nodded, her eyes shining with a fierce resolve that mirrored the stars above. "We will be the legend that no one can silence," she murmured back. With a roar that shook the very earth, they charged into the fray, their swords a blur as they cut down the guards one by one. The night was painted with the crimson of their defiance, each swing of their blades a testament to their love. But the world was cruel and their time was running out. Apollo took a blow that should have ended her, a sword piercing her side, the pain a scream that never left her lips. Nicole saw her fall, and for a moment, the world stopped spinning. Her eyes were wild with grief and anger as she turned to face the remaining guards. Her swings grew wilder, more erratic, but her strikes grew more precise. Love fueled her rage, and she was invincible. But love can also blind, and as Apollo lay on the ground, struggling to breathe, Nicole's guard slipped. A sword found its mark, and she fell to her knees beside her love, her own lifeblood joining the pool around Apollo. Their eyes met for the last time, and in that moment they knew. They had never truly been apart, not in this life and not in the next. They had been bound by destiny, by the very stars that now watched over their tragic end. And as the last of their breath left them, the forest itself seemed to mourn their passing. The trees bent low, their leaves weeping tears of dew, and the animals of the night fell silent in respect. Their bodies lay entwined, their swords still clutched tightly in their hands, a symbol of the love that had brought them together and the fate that had torn them apart. The sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky with hues of pink and gold. As the light touched their cold, still forms, the forest bloomed around them. Flowers of every color grew in a circle around their bodies, creating a garden of love that would never wither. The legend of Apollo and Nicole spread through whispers and songs, a tale of two lovers who had dared to defy the world. And in the hearts of those who heard it, a spark of rebellion was kindled, a hope that love could conquer all, even the darkest of fates. Their story became a beacon of hope for those who loved in secret, a promise that even in the face of despair, love could still shine brightly. Their garden grew, a sanctuary for lovers who sought refuge, and their names became a chant of strength, whispered in the dark. The world had tried to silence them, but their love was too loud, too powerful to be contained. And as the years passed and the seasons changed, their legend grew, their names etched into the very fabric of the universe. What could have been a tragedy of silence became a symphony of hope, their love echoing through time like the sweetest of melodies, never to be forgotten. The guards lay lifeless around them, their armor cold and gleaming in the early light of dawn. The forest, once a silent witness to their struggle, had transformed into a testament to their enduring bond. The vibrant blooms grew in a wild array, a tapestry of color that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of Apollo and Nicole's hearts that had just ceased to beat. For a moment, the world itself seemed to pause, acknowledging the immense power that lay in the quiet embrace of the two lovers. And as the sun's rays kissed their faces, the petals of the surrounding flowers began to open, revealing a soft, ethereal glow. It was as if the very essence of their love had been absorbed by the earth, now giving back a gentle, warm light. The legend grew with every retelling, each whisper of their story adding a new layer to the tapestry of their existence. The garden became a symbol of rebellion, a secret place where lovers would meet and share their own stories of passion and pain. It was said that if one whispered their deepest desires into the ear of a bloom, the spirits of Apollo and Nicole would listen and offer comfort. Years turned into centuries and the garden remained, untouched by the ravages of time. The castle walls crumbled, the kingdoms rose and fell, but the love of Apollo and Nicole remained, a beacon for those who dared to dream. The whispers grew to shouts, and the legend grew to a roar that could not be silenced. Their names were spoken in hushed tones by those who sought freedom from the confines of societal norms, inspiring countless to live and love without fear. The garden grew into a sanctuary for the outcast, a place where all were welcome, regardless of who they loved. And in the quiet moments when the world outside was still, it was said that the lovers could still be heard, their swords singing a love song that transcended death itself. The sound was faint, a distant echo of what could have been, but it was enough to remind those who listened that love, true and unyielding, was the most powerful weapon of all. Their story was never forgotten, and as the seasons changed, so too did the hearts of the people. Slowly, the world began to shift, the shackles of hate and fear loosening their grip. In time, the very laws that had once separated Apollo and Nicole were rewritten, their tragic tale serving as a catalyst for change. Their love had not been in vain. It had planted a seed in the hearts of those who had once feared the same fate, a seed that grew into a mighty oak of acceptance and freedom. And as the sun set on their eternal garden, the light of their love continued to shine, a guiding star for all who dared to follow their hearts. Years later, a young girl with hair the color of the moon found refuge in their sanctuary. Her eyes searched the faces of the flowers, and she felt their love in every petal that brushed against her skin. Her heart was heavy with her own secret love, one that was as forbidden as theirs had been. With trembling hands, she reached for the sword that had been left behind, the one that Apollo had held so fiercely. The metal was warm to the touch, as if it still held the warmth of its wielder's hand. As she held it aloft, the glow of the garden intensified, the flowers bowing to her in silent respect. The girl took it as a sign, a message from the lovers themselves. Love could not be contained, nor could it be silenced. With newfound strength, she vowed to fight for her own happiness, to honor the sacrifice of Apollo and Nicole. The whispers grew louder, the stories of the lovers reaching the ears of those in power. Kings and queens began to listen, to understand that love knew no boundaries, no rules. The castle walls, once stained with the blood of those who dared to be different, were now adorned with banners of rainbow hues, a declaration to the world that love had won. Their legend became a rallying cry for equality, a symbol of hope that love could conquer the darkest of fates. The garden of Apollo and Nicole expanded, its blooms spreading across the lands, a living testament to the power of love. The girl grew into a woman, a warrior in her own right, fighting alongside others who had found solace in the garden. Together they championed the cause of those who still suffered in the shadows. Their battles were not won with steel but with the strength of their hearts. They carried the love of Apollo and Nicole with them into every skirmish, their swords now plowshares turning the earth to cultivate a world where love could flourish without fear. And in the quiet moments when the wind whispered through the leaves, they could almost hear the laughter of the lovers, encouraging them to push forward. Their story grew, woven into the very fabric of the kingdom's history, a reminder to all that love was not a crime but the most noble of virtues. The world had changed, and the lovers had not been forgotten. They were immortal in the hearts of those they had inspired. Their names were spoken in prayers, their garden a place of pilgrimage for those seeking a glimpse of the love that had transformed a nation. The once forbidden love had become a beacon, a symbol of hope and courage that would never fade. Apollo and Nicole had become the gods of love, their tragic tale a sacred lesson that love was worth fighting for, even if it meant defying the very fabric of existence. Their story had transcended their lives, becoming a legend that would live on, forever changing the hearts of those who heard it. The young girl who had found refuge in their garden grew into a leader, her heart filled with the love and courage of the lovers. She became known as the guardian of the bloom, carrying forth their message of hope and acceptance. She and her followers traveled from village to village, sharing the story of Apollo and Nicole, and the sanctity of their bond. In the hallowed halls of the new kingdom, the king and queen, themselves once forbidden lovers, listened to her words with tears in their eyes. They knew the pain of hiding in the shadows, the fear of discovery, and the fierce love that had burned within them, pushing them to stand against the tyranny of the old ways. The queen took the guardian's hand and whispered, "Thank you for keeping their love alive. It is because of them that we stand here today." The king nodded solemnly, his gaze drifting to the stained glass window depicting the two lovers, their swords crossed in a symbol of eternal unity. Moved by her words and the power of their legacy, the royal couple decided to declare the anniversary of Apollo and Nicole's final embrace a day of celebration. It would be a time to remember the sacrifices made in the name of love, and to reaffirm their commitment to a world where all hearts could love freely. On that day, every year, the kingdom would come together in the garden, sharing tales of love that had triumphed over adversity, their voices joining in a chorus that echoed through the ages. The air would be thick with the scent of blooming flowers, their vibrant colors a testament to the enduring spirit of the lovers. Their legend grew, inspiring artists and poets to create works that immortalized their love. The garden grew more beautiful with each passing year, as if the very earth was trying to repay them for the love they had brought to the world. The lovers had not disappeared into the annals of history. They had become a living, breathing part of it. Their love was a force that had reshaped the world, turning a tragedy into a triumph. The young girl, now a wise woman, would sit at the center of the garden, her own heart filled with joy and sorrow as she watched the world change. She knew that their story was not just a tale of what could have been, but a promise of what could be. Their love had become a revolution, a declaration that no matter how much the world might try to silence it, love would always find a way to be heard. The whispers grew to a crescendo, the echoes of their swords clashing a symphony that played across the land, inspiring others to fight for their heart's desires. And as the sun set on another year, the garden would glow with the light of 1,000 candles, each one a declaration of love from those who had been touched by their story. Apollo and Nicole's love had not been in vain. It had started a revolution, and the world was forever changed.